Chapter 4877. Ling Long walked past Yi Qing Luo and directly towards Feng Shi. It's not impossible for me to let you out. Feng Shi looked at her warily. What's your motive? He naturally could tell. The identity of this young girl in front of him should be extremely distinguished in this place. Would she let him out? Ling Long walked nearer to Feng Shi and suddenly stretched out her hand. Feng Shi was so shocked that she jumped backwards, out of Ling Long's range of reach. Ling Long's hand touched thin air. Her small, delicate face and big, bright eyes revealed a bit of interest. This unruly princess who called her attendant a slave just because she was slightly resisted. Now that she was rejected, she actually had no intention of getting angry. Instead, she laughed. What's there to be nervous about? Do you think I will eat you up? She retracted her hand and walked towards the vigilant Feng Shi. Didn't you want to eat candied haws? I specially brought 2 skewers of candied haws for you. Her vision swept towards Yi Qing Luo. Shao Qi, passed the candied haws to him. Previously Yi Qing Luo heard a few secluded palaces' disciples going out to buy candied haws for Feng Shi. So, Ling Long brought her attendant over specially to deliver candied haws to Feng Shi. This unruly little princess. Would she be so kind? Yi Qing Luo's expression remained unchanged as she walked towards Feng Shi and passed the candied haws in her hand. Feng Shi's cold face was filled with alertness when she saw her approaching, and he even took a few steps back. But at the moment when Yi Qing Luo passed the candied haws to him, Feng Shi seemed to have reacted as he raised his head abruptly and stared at Yi Qing Luo, who was shrouded in a black robe. He stared at her with his big round eyes, as though he was trying to confirm something. Yi Qing Luo looked at Feng Shi with some astonishment. This lad recognized her. She had disguised herself so well. And she was actually recognized. Feng Shi suddenly grabbed her arm with her small hand and moved her face closer, trying to see Su Qingsang's face under the black robe. Yi Qing Luo hurriedly raised her hand and pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Under the black robe, a pair of long and narrow eyes were revealed as he blinked at Feng Shi. Then, he disappeared into the darkness. Yi Qing Luo took 2 steps back and stood firmly behind Ling Long. Feng Shi stood rooted to the spot. Ling Long looked at Feng Shi in confusion. Then, she glanced sideways at the attendant behind her. Shao Qi, what's going on? Your subordinate does not know. A deep and husky voice came out from Yi Qing Luo's mouth. Ling Long's gaze moved back and forth between the two of them for a while. Then, he fixed his gaze on Feng Shi. Do you like my attendant? The dumbfounded little person turned his head stiffly. Upon hearing Ling Long's words, Zhang Xian frowned. He subconsciously took a glance at Yi Qing Luo. However, Feng Shi was the legitimate grandson of the Feng family. Very quickly, he adjusted his train of thought. Fairy sister must have dressed up like this to save him. With fairy sister here, he didn't need to be afraid. Thinking like this, the vigilance on Feng Shi's face faded a little. She pretended not to know Yi Qing Luo at all and asked directly, "Who are you? What do you want to do?" Ling Long didn't ask about Feng Shi's strange behavior when she saw her servant. She heard that the little dumpling was willing to respond to her. She was in a good mood and gave a rare smile. I am Princess Ling Long here. Everyone has to listen to me, including you. The little girl raised her chin, apparently very complacent. Feng Shi looked at her suspiciously. Really? Everyone listens to you? Chapter 4878. A poor person with no friends. Ling Long crossed her arms. Why? Are you doubting me? Feng Shi asked again. Then you said, you can let me out, is that true? Of course. Ling Long was delighted. Who dares to disobey my order? Feng Shi pursed her lips, seemingly considering. After a while, she raised her head. What do you want me to do? Ling Long walked straight over. Feng Shi took a step back. Then took a look at where Yiqing Luo was standing. Finally, he stood still and let Ling Long put her hand on his shoulder. Ling Long's smile widened. I don't need you to be a master, I just want you to play with me. Feng Shi. Play. Did he hear it wrong? This little princess actually wanted him to play with her. Play what? Play with his life. Ling Long looked at the lad's shocked expression and smiled calmly. Yes, this princess wants you to play with this princess. Feng Shi stood still. From the corner of his eyes, he glanced at the small hand on his shoulder. Fair and slender. It looked even smaller than his hand. He swallowed. How do you want me to play with you? Play with me like how you usually play, said Ling Long. Feng Shi was stunned, her face drooping. I don't have friends. Ling Long was stunned too. A look of disappointment appeared on her delicate and pretty little face. You are the same as this princess, a pitiful person without friends. She said the last 4 words very softly. Almost inaudible. But it clearly floated into Feng Shi's ears. He seemed to understand something. This princess, who looked unruly and extremely confident and flamboyant. She looked beautiful on the surface. But the pain in her heart was no less than ordinary people. As the grandson of the Feng family, Feng Shi. He understood Ling Long's feelings very well. They were high up and unreachable. They wanted something. As long as they asked, someone would do it for them. But it wasn't them who worked hard for what they wanted. What was the point of such a life? No friends around him. No, there were some. It was just that those so-called friends were only getting close to him because of the warnings of the elders of the family. Actually, those people must hate him. She didn't want to play with him at all. He has no friends. Apart from Grandpa and Granny Phoenix. There was only boundless loneliness left in his life. Presumably, Princess Ling Long was probably the same as well. He was only 6 years old. However, his mentality was like that of an old man in his 70s. Feng Shi blinked her big eyes and looked at Ling Long seriously. If you keep your word, I can be your friend. Ling Long's eyes lit up. You're the one who said it. Then we are friends now. Yiqing Luo. He looked at the 2 children in the room with a dumbfounded expression. They shook hands and looked at each other. Then, they played together. Yiqing Luo, since when did her Sisi become such a brat who easily messed around with others? What happened to being autistic? His mind was flooded with messages. Yiqing Luo didn't show it on her face. Looking at the 2 little ones, they laughed and played around. She slowly walked to the door and stood still, acting as a backdrop. This was also to prevent anyone from coming in. Interrupting her Sisi's honey trap to cultivate feelings with Ling Long. Chapter 48-79. Outside the door, they could faintly hear the voices of the secluded palace's disciples or attendants. Princess Ling Long seems to be smiling very happily. That wimpy brat is so hard to please. Why is he not making a fuss now? Why is Princess Ling Long looking for that wimpy brat? Why is it so lively inside? This is the first time we've heard Princess Ling Long smiling so happily. The secluded palace's disciples were also gossipy. Perhaps it's because Princess Ling Long had never seen anyone younger or similar in age to her. An attendant spoke calmly. Princess Ling Long heard that Elder Su had kidnapped a child, so she hurried over. That attendant paused slightly before continuing. She heard that the other party wanted to eat candied haws, so she brought her favorite candied haws along. The secluded palace's disciples nodded their heads in realization. That's true. His lordship had never allowed Princess Ling Long to interact with the outside world. Princess Ling Long indeed had never interacted with anyone other than us. No wonder Princess Ling Long took the initiative to look for her. Forget it, it's just two kids and Xiao Qi is guarding over there so nothing will happen. Let Princess Ling Long play with that wimpy brat for a while. Yiqing Luo heard those people's discussions outside the door as her slender eyes squinted slightly. Then, he shifted his gaze to the smiling Ling Long. She sighed. This Ling Long should be the daughter of the mastermind behind the secluded palace. And the mastermind behind the secluded palace valued her a lot. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been nurtured into such a character. But keeping her in the secluded palace, not allowing her to come into contact with the outside world. This was like keeping a canary in a cage. Was it really, purely because of care? Yiqing Luo didn't quite understand this care. Look at the current Ling Long. She was so adorable and her smile was beautiful. Her mannerisms, speech were all spoiled and willful. Probably because of the circle she came into contact with. Only the secluded palace. And the people in the secluded palace were all respectful towards her. So much so. When Ling Long saw that Feng Shi was treating her differently from the others, she couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. Not only would she not be angry, she felt interesting. Let the two of them play for a while. Yiqing Luo looked around unknowingly, scanning the surroundings. He memorized all the furnishings in the room. In his mind, he made a plan to leave. From time to time, people would walk past the door. But no one approached the door. Yiqing Luo had not received any news from Zhu Wuxin. About an hour later, the two little dumplings that were playing together were also tired. At this moment, they were sitting on the ground with their backs against each other, resting with their eyes closed. It had been a long time since the two of them had such happiness. Just as the peaceful and harmonious atmosphere was spreading intensely. Suddenly, he heard a low shout, "What are you guys doing here?" Elder Su. The greetings of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples came from outside. Elder Su strode over. "Where is Feng family's tiny tot?" "He's inside." The disciple of Dark Palace answered respectfully. "No, but, just stay inside." Elder Su interrupted the disciple and waved his hand. He pushed the door open and walked into the room. Chapter 4880. Elder Su. Yiqing Luo mimicked the greetings from the secluded palace's disciples outside. A black robe covered her entire body, leaving no gap. This Elder Su in front of her. He was the black-robed man who had appeared at the Feng family's courtyard and kidnapped Feng Shi. Elder Su took a glance at Yiqing Luo. "Why are you here?" He didn't wait for Yiqing Luo's reply. He walked straight in. When he saw the two of them sitting back to back, his expression changed. "Princess Ling Long, what are you doing here?" This exclamation. It made the two who were tired of playing open their eyes. When Ling Long saw Elder Su, a sliver of impatience surfaced on her face. "Elder Su, what are you shouting about?" "This is my territory. Do I need Elder Su's permission to go wherever I want?" Elder Su's expression froze. "Princess Ling Long, I'm just concerned about you." "I'm fine, I don't need your concern." Ling Long gave him a disdainful glance. Then she stretched her waist and stood up slowly. Feng Shi also stood up and stared at Elder Su with vigilance. There was a hint of fear on her face. Ling Long saw Feng Shi's action and patted his shoulder. "I'm here, what are you afraid of? I will protect you." Princess Ling Long. Elder Su frowned and called out unhappily, "That's the person his lordship wants. This princess likes him." Ling Long raised her head. "He belongs to this princess." This princess will ask imperial father for him. Princess Linglong. Elder Su's expression sunk. His lordship will not agree to your request. You are Princess Linglong, you shouldn't be involved with these people. Whether he agrees or not is up to father, it has nothing to do with you. Linglong's expression turned cold. Or Elder Su thinks that you can replace father's thoughts. I don't dare. When Elder Su heard that, his expression changed as he lowered his head. If he were to wear this high hat on his head, if it reached his lordship's ears, that was regardless of whether he had ulterior motives. Even his lordship would not tolerate him. Linglong snorted coldly, extremely arrogant. Then, she raised her chin and asked arrogantly, "What are you doing here? Did father ask you to bring him over?" No. The veins on Elder Su's forehead bulged, but he managed to suppress them. I just came to check on his condition. Linglong raised her brows. Since Lord Father doesn't intend to summon Cece, then let Cece follow this princess first. Princess Linglong, you mustn't do that. Elder Su glanced at Feng Shi and said, his identity is rather special. He's under the strict supervision of the Lord, so there's no room for any mistakes. You mean to say, something will happen to him if he hangs around this princess? Linglong sneered. Her exquisite and beautiful face was filled with arrogance. In your eyes, this princess is a troublemaker? This subordinate dares not think so. Elder Su gritted his teeth as he spoke. The expression on his face was frozen. However, the words that came out of his mouth seemed to be for her sake. This subordinate is just worried that boy is too cunning and will deceive you, your highness, and hurt your heart. But I like him. Linglong had no intention of compromising. As a result, in the end, Elder Su was the only one who compromised. After all, this was the princess that the Lord doted on the most. Elder Su agreed to let Feng Shi follow Linglong. However, it was only limited to this underground palace. Chapter 4881. Elder Su took a step back. Linglong naturally took a step back as well. In this underground palace, so be it. Anyway, no matter where it was, as long as she could play with Cece, it was fine. Linglong didn't care. But Feng Shi's face turned pale. Princess Linglong, you promised me. She promised to let him go. Why did she agree to Elder Su's words now? The range of activity was limited to this underground palace. What was the difference between locking him up? Linglong held Feng Shi's hand and walked out of the room. The lights in the huge underground palace weren't bright but not dark either. The candles hung on the walls lengthened their shadows. Linglong asked with a serious expression, "Aren't you out now?" Feng Shi, you tricked me. I like you, why would I trick you? Linglong frowned, didn't I do what I promised you? Let him go. Now, he had indeed left the house where he was being held captive. These words, there was nothing wrong with it. Feng Shi pursed her lips, unwilling to speak. Elder Su took a look at Feng Shi and then at the arrogant princess who didn't fly into a rage like usual even though Feng Shi had given him a cold shoulder. He retracted his gaze and looked at the other disciples. Watch carefully, if you lose sight of him, all of you will die. Yes. The disciples of the Nether Palace were trembling in fear as they replied respectfully. Elder Su flicked his sleeves and left. Linglong grabbed Feng Shi's hand. Let's go, I'll bring you to my room to play, there are many fun things inside, before she could finish her words. Feng Shi swung her hand and slapped Linglong's hand away. Her little face was filled with anger. I don't want to play with you. Without any warning, Linglong was slapped away and staggered back a step. Yi Qing Luo supported her from behind in time. She was a little girl who had been pampered since young. Just one slap. A large red patch appeared on Linglong's fair and tender skin. It looked extremely shocking. The expressions of the palace of gloomy darkness disciples changed, and they rushed to Ling Long. How dare you? How dare you hurt Princess Ling Long? Immediately, other disciples of the palace of darkness lifted Feng Shi up. Just as he was about to slap her, "Stop!" Ling Long's expression turned slightly cold. She reprimanded and lashed her whip at the disciple who slapped her. She said with a cold face, "Did I ask you to do it? Get lost." The Darkness Palace disciple who was whipped and the other disciples all took 2 steps back and lowered their heads in apology. Ling Long snorted coldly and looked back at Feng Shi. She stuffed the whip into Yi Qing Luo's hand and strode over to Feng Shi. "Why are you angry with me?" She was arrogant and unreasonable when facing the disciples of the Dark Palace. When he looked at Feng Shi, there was nothing left. She patiently continued, "I like you, but that doesn't mean you can trample on my good intentions." Feng Shi gritted her teeth. She had tricked him with words. Why did it sound like it was his fault? Just as he was about to say something, out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the black-robed young lady behind Ling Long. She shook her head at him. The words in Feng Shi's mouth stopped. She lowered her head and said in a muffled voice, "I want to leave this place." Ling Long walked closer to him. I want to leave too." "Aren't you a princess? Why can't you leave?" Feng Shi asked. Ling Long said, "Other than leaving the restricted area that my father has set for me, I can't go anywhere else." Chapter 4882. You're my first friend, then you're such a pitiful princess. Feng Shi was stunned. She raised her eyes and saw the melancholy in Ling Long's eyes. All of the anger he felt just now had dissipated in an instant. Ling Long chuckled, but that smile didn't reach her eyes and couldn't disperse the sadness in her eyes. "Yes, I have the respect and power of a princess, so I have to bear the price of enjoying the treatment of a princess." At this moment, she had already addressed herself as, "I, not this princess. Here, besides father, no one dares to criticize or disobey me, but similarly, what I have to pay is my freedom." Ling Long slowly held Feng Shi's little hand. "You're my first friend." Feng Shi was still in a daze. The hand that held his was very warm, like the sun, shining on him warmly. Feng Shi's heart skipped a beat as her clear eyes stared unblinkingly at the little girl in front of her. After some time, he held Ling Long's hand back. "You're my first friend too." Ling Long's brows relaxed, that pair of beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful arc. "So, other than letting you leave this place, I can promise you anything you want." As she said that, she bent down slightly and got close to Feng Shi's ear. "I will beg father to let you off." Feng Shi was still in a daze when Ling Long brought her to this underground palace, to her room. The princess's room was much more luxurious and exquisite than the room where Feng Shi was locked up. And it was filled with children's favorite toys, sweets and snacks. She could tell Ling Long was indeed a doted palace mistress. She sent the 2 little dumplings back to their room. Yi Qing Luo was about to step into the room. Her wrist was pulled. "Shao Qi, what are you doing?" Yi Qing Luo stopped in her tracks, looking at the person who was pulling her back in a daze. It was Ling Long's attendant. Yi Qing Luo deliberated on how to answer the attendant. She heard him continue, "No one is allowed to enter Princess Ling Long's room. While Princess Ling Long is in a good mood, don't let her find out." Yi Qing Luo silently retracted her leg. "Princess Ling Long sure has a lot of problems." She pursed her pink lips and quickly scanned Ling Long's room through the black robe. If Feng Shi stayed here, there shouldn't be any danger. She left the room and closed the door. Outside the door, the group of attendants finally heaved a sigh of relief. They leaned against the wall and sat unsteadily. "Princess Ling Long seems to be in a good mood today. As long as we serve her carefully, we should be able to survive until tomorrow's shift. That brat just now scared me to death. He actually dared to reject Princess Linglong. Luckily, Princess Linglong is quite fond of that little brat. Otherwise, we will all be implicated. After today, we'll be able to change shifts soon. In front of others, the servants were cold and aloof, like orderly puppets. At this moment, they were all grumbling softly. Yiqing Luo casually found a place to sit down as she listened to the attendants' discussions. He roughly understood just how bad was Linglong's reputation. The servants described her as an evil woman who had crawled out of hell. Unruly, willful, cruel, and bloodthirsty. Killing without batting an eyelid. Yiqing Luo listened with a face of suspicion. Although the cute and pretty little princess was a little unreasonable, she was still a little arrogant. But it was not to the extent, using vicious words like killing people like flax, cruel and bloodthirsty, to describe her. Chapter 4883. How bad was Princess Linglong's reputation? Yiqing Luo also found out. They were Princess Linglong's servants, and they worked in shifts. About 20 over people, 6 people would be chosen daily to take care of Princess Linglong. Every time the servants took care of Princess Linglong, there was a risk of losing their lives. Their lives depended on Princess Linglong's mood. So they took care of Princess Linglong. They were all on tenterhooks, afraid that they would lose their lives. The few of them were ridiculing. Suddenly one of the servants looked at Yiqing Luo. "Number 7, why are you so quiet today? Aren't you the one who?" said the most powerful. Yiqing Luo, who was called out. She only wanted to be a quiet background. He was the 7th son of the emperor. Couldn't she know her place earlier? How was she going to maintain her image as the 7th servant? She felt like she was going to fall off the horse. Yiqing Luo's heart roared as her brain worked quickly, suppressing her voice. "Today, Princess Linglong seems to be very happy." "That's not true." The servant waved his hand. "This is the first time Princess Linglong interacted with a wimpy kid from the outside world. Princess Linglong should have treated him as her little toy. From what I see, Princess Linglong got a new toy and is so happy that she can't bear to part with it." Number 7. Someone came over and sized up Yiqing Luo suspiciously. "Princess Linglong is happy with a new toy. What has it got to do with you not grumbling or being afraid?" Even though they were separated by a black robe, Yiqing Luo could clearly feel the other party's gaze, examining her. Yiqing Luo was extremely calm as her voice was deep. "Because, I am different from what you think." She waved away that person's hand and looked towards the tightly shut door. "Princess Linglong today, when she smiles, she looks very beautiful." Servants. So, looks were justice. Because Princess Linglong smiled beautifully, so she couldn't even bear to grumble. Suddenly, squeak, the room door was opened. A young girl dressed in an exquisite long dress stood at the door. Princess Linglong. The servants were so shocked that they jumped up from the ground and hurriedly stood up straight respectfully. Linglong's beautiful big eyes stared straight at Yiqing Luo, unable to tell the emotions within. The attendants held their breaths. He was afraid that if he was not careful, his life would be taken by this unruly and headstrong princess. Linglong's vision stared at Yiqing Luo for some time. "You said this princess is very beautiful." "Princess Linglong, this is what she said. It has nothing to do with us." The attendants immediately voiced out to clarify their relationship. However, Linglong did not even bother to look at them. He only stared deeply at Yiqing Luo as he repeated his question. "Say it one more time." "If Cece likes it, I'll get the kitchen to make it for you every day." Linglong smiled. She blinked her big eyes and then lowered her head slightly. But I won't be able to eat it soon. As long as this princess is around, you can eat whatever you want. Ling Long's vision shot towards Yi Qing Luo. Remember what Cece wants to eat, go prepare it. Princess Ling Long. Yi Qing Luo also put down her chopsticks. Young Master Feng should not be because he wants to eat anything. She didn't beat around the bush as she continued, young Master Feng is a hostage that Master specially instructed Elder Su to lock up here. A day has already passed, and the Lord should soon send news back and have someone take young Master Feng away. Chapter 4885. That's why young Master Feng feels that he won't be able to eat it soon. After a day of interaction, Yi Qing Luo had some understanding towards this unruly little princess. You and her went around in circles. She absolutely couldn't understand the twists and turns. She couldn't figure out what you were hinting at. She could only point it out directly. Ling Long then understood. The moment she said that, the entire room fell into silence. Ling Long's hand, which was holding the wooden chopsticks, froze as she slammed it heavily on the table. I will not let father take Cece away. Yi Qing Luo met Ling Long's sullen gaze as she spoke in a considerate tone. Princess Ling Long, I don't have any other intentions, I just want to remind you. In case Master wants to take young Master Feng away and Princess Ling Long can't accept it, thus hurting the harmony between you two. Even if you tell me now, I can't accept it. Ling Long's exquisite and beautiful face turned serious as she looked at Feng Shi seriously. I want Cece to stay by my side, to be my playmate for life. Princess Ling Long's idea is good. Yi Qing Luo's voice gradually became gentle, but, Princess Ling Long, have you ever thought? Under the black robe, the young lady's gaze was very gentle. Is young Master Feng willing? Ling Long was just about to reply confidently. How would he dare to not comply with my request? I like him so much, he will definitely like me too, what's there to be unwilling about? But when she saw Feng Shi's slightly gloomy eyes, she swallowed back the words that were on the tip of her tongue. She spat out 3 words, but she didn't say anything else. That's right, how would Cece agree to accompany her in this dark place for life? She couldn't force anyone. But she couldn't force herself to be her first friend. Although she had never made friends before. But she also knew that friends couldn't be forced. Yi Qing Luo looked at their silent expressions as she eased the atmosphere. Princess Ling Long, do you know the reason why Master kidnapped young Master Feng? If you know the reason, perhaps you can let young Master Feng stay by your side safe and sound. I don't know. Ling Long hung her head in defeat. My father has never allowed me to ask about him. Yi Qing Luo consoled him. Young Master Feng is after all the Feng family's direct grandson, so Master shouldn't be too overboard. No. I'm going to find my father. Ling Long suddenly slammed the table and stood up. Cece is my friend. I can't let royal father hurt Cece. Saying that, she didn't wait for Yi Qing Luo's reply or Feng Shi's reaction. He hurriedly walked out of the door. That was called valiant and high-spirited. Yi Qing Luo. This little princess was really a doer. He was in a hurry. Princess Ling Long, where are you going? Princess Ling Long, Princess Ling Long. Outside the door, the servants called out. Ling Long walked very quickly. Chapter 4886. Yi Qing Luo bent over and carried Feng Shi in her arms, sizing him up. Are you hurt anywhere? Feng Shi shook his head. Even if they locked me up, they wouldn't dare to touch me. Yi Qing Luo poked his forehead. I heard that you've created quite a ruckus here. In the house where he was locked up, everything was smashed to smithereens. It even made those secluded palaces' disciples fly into a rage. They even compromised and went out to buy candied haws. Feng Shi was probably the only one who could enjoy such treatment. But The attitude of the secluded palace's disciples. On the contrary, it made Yiqing Luo feel uneasy. This was enough to tell. The mastermind of the secluded palace needed Feng Shi. What did the mastermind of the secluded palace want to do to Feng Shi? What did he need Feng Shi to do? Yiqing Luo suppressed the suspicions in her heart as she rubbed Feng Shi's head. Sister is here, I'll bring you out soon. She paused and lowered her voice. Princess Ling Long likes you very much. If you keep following Princess Ling Long, she can protect you. When she mentioned Ling Long, the smile on the little man's face gradually faded. He pursed his lips as he drooped his head. His forehead rested on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. His voice sounded a little gloomy. Fairy sister, I don't want to lie to her. Yiqing Luo knew that the her he was referring to was Ling Long. Yiqing Luo laughed lightly. Cici also likes Princess Ling Long. Feng Shi nodded without hesitation. Princess Ling Long treats me sincerely, I don't want to lie to her. All right. Yiqing Luo had no intention to refute as she gently rubbed the little dumpling's head. Cici, do whatever you want to do. Feng Shi suddenly raised his head. Her black and white eyes were sparkling. He grinned as his eyes curved. All the uneasiness and unhappiness in the bottom of his heart had completely dissipated. But Cici, we have to leave this place. Yiqing Luo's vision looked towards the tightly shut door. Princess Ling Long isn't around and the attendants and secluded palace's disciples outside all think that I'm guarding you. This is our best chance to leave. She reached out and pinched Feng Shi's nose. Cici, are you leaving? The smile on Feng Shi's face, which had just appeared, slowly faded away. He looked at Yiqing Luo in a daze. Then, he glanced at the room that was filled with Linglong's aura. He had just made up his mind to reveal his identity and Yiqing Luo's identity to Linglong. I want to tell her. He also sincerely wanted to be friends with her. I want to tell her. He wanted to take her out of this dark place and let her see other colors in the world. But he couldn't. Even if he didn't know what kind of place this underground palace was. But it was also clear. This place was fraught with danger. Fairy sister came here to save him. He was definitely taking a huge risk. Now was the best chance to leave. I missed it. I'm afraid, it's not just him who can't leave this place. Even Fairy sister would be implicated by him. He could not be so selfish. Although he was small, his thoughts were extremely mature. In the blink of an eye, he used a clear and resolute gaze to look at her. Fairy sister, I'll leave with you. He paused slightly, but before this, I want to tell her that I really treat her as my friend. Yiqing Luo touched his head. Go on. This was the little dumpling's first friend. Chapter 4887. Yiqing Luo couldn't deprive Feng Shi of the joy of making her first friend. And Ling Long, that girl, wasn't a bad person. To Ling Long, Xiao Tuanzi was also her first friend. If she could, Yiqing Luo quite liked that the two of them could play together. It would be best if Feng Shi could change Ling Long's spoiled and willful temper. Feng Shi took out a piece of paper and wrote down what he wanted to tell Ling Long seriously. Every stroke was written in an extremely serious manner. Until he checked it 3 times. He then put down the pen. He placed the paper that was filled with words under Ling Long's pillow. Fairy sister, I'm done. Feng Shi ran back to Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo patted his little shoulder. Have you decided? Feng Shi nodded vigorously. The little girl's black and white eyes were filled with seriousness and solemnity. I know that Grandpa is worried about me, and I also know that Fairy sister took a huge risk to save me. I can't be willful and only think about myself. He wanted to accompany his first friend. To accompany the friend who was alone other than him. But now, it wasn't the time. He couldn't because of the importance he attached to friendship. Regardless of the others. He believed Princess Linglong would understand him. Yi Qing Luo carried her with one hand. My little Cece, you've really grown up. She pinched the little boy's face. I'll bring you out now. Hold on tight to me. No matter what happens, don't make a sound. Can you do that? Feng Shi nodded vigorously. Her little hands circled Yi Qing Luo's neck. Cece will not be a burden to Fairy Sister. Be good. Yi Qing Luo carried Feng Shi and returned to the other side of the room. The Palace of Darkness really loved Linglong to the core. In this dungeon, which should be for the Jiang family's aristocrats, there was an extremely luxurious room specially built. Outside the window on the other side of Linglong's room was a flower bed. Under the bright luminous pearl. Those transplanted flowers were in full bloom, bright purple and red. Extremely beautiful. Behind the flower bed, there was a towering wall. Yi Qing Luo brought Feng Shi over the garden and climbed over the wall. When she looked down, below them was a pitch-black tunnel. He seemed to have returned to the tunnel that he had passed through before coming here. The other end of Linglong's room was actually connected to this passage. If he followed the path, he would be able to leave the underground palace. She could leave the underground palace now. However, what about Zhu Wuxin? Hiding a servant for such a long time. With Zhu Wuxin's skills, he shouldn't be discovered by those people from Dark Nether Palace. Even if they found out, he could also escape. However, now, she had left with Feng Shi. Would Zhu Wuxin think that she was in this underground palace and was looking for her everywhere? When Yi Qing Luo thought of this, her brows creased tightly into a bundle. How troublesome. Forget it, I'll send Feng Shi out first. Yi Qing Luo took a look at the tunnel below. He was about to jump down. Suddenly, he heard a panicked roar from behind him. Oh no. The little brat from the Feng family is gone. And seventh. What happened? Quick. Hurry up and find him. The footsteps of the Dark Abyss Palace disciples and servants got closer. Oh no, they had been discovered. How could it be so fast? Yi Qing Luo's pink lips pursed tightly as she lowered her head to look at the little one in her arms. Cece, hold on tight. Chapter 4888. Feng Shi responded with an N. Yi Qing Luo leaped up and landed lightly on the ground. Following that, she walked along the tunnel. It was pitch black inside the tunnel. She couldn't see the surrounding path. Yi Qing Luo walked a few steps and sensed. Not right. When she came here, she specially constructed a map of the tunnel's topography in her mind as she walked. If she walked through it again, she would definitely feel a sense of familiarity. But the tunnel she was walking on now, the feeling was totally different. This tunnel wasn't the tunnel to leave the underworld. Yi Qing Luo suddenly recalled the fork in the road when she came over. Could it be the tunnel she was walking on now? Was it another fork in the road? But now, it was basically impossible for her to turn back. The Palace of Darkness's disciples would not give her this chance. She could only move forward. Yi Qing Luo walked forward quickly. While she was moving forward quickly, she could clearly hear footsteps from all directions, and the sound of the Palace of Darkness's disciples exchanging information. In front, she could faintly see a bit of light. Yi Qing Luo quietly got closer. To his surprise, he realized that the passageway led to a huge courtyard. In this cold and gloomy underground cave, there was an inexplicable strange feeling. This place. What place was this? In this underground palace. Why did they have to specially build such a courtyard that required so much time, effort, and money? Who was the person who stayed in this courtyard? Yiqing Luo recalled that Ling Long seemed to be the one who came from this tunnel. Could it be? The person in the courtyard was the mastermind behind the Palace of Darkness. Yiqing Luo's eyes wavered slightly. This side. Do you want to go take a look? That's a forbidden area. But we searched the entire underground palace and didn't find Feng family's brat and number 7. The disciples guarding the entrance of the underground prison didn't see the both of them leaving. Perhaps they are hiding here. Behind them, the Palace of Darkness's disciples' voices were getting closer. They were still feeling uneasy, hesitating if they should come over to search. Yiqing Luo heard their discussion as her heart started to pound. This was a forbidden area. There was actually a forbidden area in the Palace of Darkness's base. What kind of secret or treasure was hidden here? Yiqing Luo raised her eyebrows slightly, held Feng Shi tightly, and jumped into the courtyard. Forbidden areas were the best places to hide. It was the moment she jumped into the courtyard. Footsteps could be heard from outside the courtyard. The disciples of Gloomy Palace caught up. Are we going in? I don't think so. What if the person is really hiding inside? Elder Su said that if we lose sight of him, all of us will have to die with him. Either way, I'll die. Let's go in. The disciples of Darkness Palace chattered for a long time outside the courtyard. In the end, he decided, enter. Yiqing Luo's current position. It was very close to the courtyard gate. As long as those people came in, she would definitely be discovered. But the place where she was standing now was a little awkward. The ground was covered with a thick layer of withered yellow leaves. All she had to do was lift her foot slightly and put it down. The rustling of leaves was extremely obvious. When those people heard it, they would be able to detect her position. The Palace of Darkness's disciples got closer to the courtyard gate bit by bit. From the footsteps, there were about 10 over of them. Yiqing Luo's heart started to race. The courtyard gate, slowly, was pushed open. Chapter 48-89. 10 over figures walked into the courtyard uneasily. They just needed to take another 2 steps forward. Just a side glance and there was a possibility. See her. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers pressed on Feng Shi's head. She was silently guessing in her heart whether there would be a chance for Feng Shi to escape later. Just as the dozen or so figures entered the courtyard and were about to look around, her body suddenly felt light. Her mouth was covered by someone. She was dragged onto the big tree branch behind her. The leaves rustled. This attracted the attention of the secluded palace's disciples. Under the dim illumination of the luminous pearl, the leaves swayed along with the chilly wind. The rustling sound of the leaves rubbing against each other could be heard. Everyone heaved a sigh of relief. It's just the wind, nothing. What nonsense. Yiqing Luo's heart was roaring like a dragon. Her mouth was covered and she couldn't even make a sound. The secluded palace's disciples were still scurrying around. She didn't dare to struggle or move. Until the secluded palace's disciples went around the courtyard and searched one round before leaving. Yiqing Luo then yanked away the hand covering her mouth. Zhuwu Axan, why are you here? She was entirely shrouded in a black robe. Earlier when she was dragged up the tree and covering her mouth, they were all separated by a black robe. But it still couldn't be concealed. A faint plum fragrance. It was a clear and cold aura unique to Zhu Wuxin. Zhu Wu Axan held Feng Shi steadily with one hand as he slowly retracted the other. Coincidence? Do you think I'll believe that? Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes, hiding an attendant. You've already disappeared and now you ran to this secluded area of the secluded palace. Yiqing Luo's slender eyes rose slightly as she tilted her head slightly. on the surface, you specially brought me to the secluded palace's base to save someone. In actual fact, you have your own motive. Zhu Wuxian's thin lips moved, as though he wanted to say something. Under the dim and hazy light, that pair of icy cold, deep eyes were tainted with a thin sense of disappointment. But, in the end, he didn't say anything. As though he silently agreed with Yiqing Luo's words. Yiqing Luo leapt down from the tree and gathered the loose black robe around her. I'm not too concerned about what your motive is. I just want to know, are you going to leave this base of the Palace of Gloomy Darkness? You can't leave now. Zhu Wuxian's voice was very calm. The disciples of Gloomy Palace will seal all the passages. Once you show yourself, you will fall into their trap. He paused for a moment before continuing. You should know very well that the Palace of Gloomy Shadows is best at all kinds of evil forbidden arts. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched. Then we're just going to sit here and wait for death. Zhu Wuxin was silent for a moment. Chapter 4890. Yiqing Luo looked at him as he opened the room's door with ease. With great precision, he placed Feng Shi on a chair in the dark. A strange feeling arose from the bottom of her heart. She frowned slightly as she stared at Zhu Wuxian. This room is your room. Zhu Wuxian's figure paused slightly as he poured the tea. But it was only for a moment. He continued to pass the teacup to Feng Shi as he replied, Yiqing Luo, no. Not. Yiqing Luo's expression congealed slightly as a strange glint flashed past her eyes. She originally thought that Zhu Wuxian's room was in the forbidden grounds of the secluded palace. However, Zhu Wuxin denied it. Zhu Wuxian disdained to lie. What he said should be the truth. But if this place had nothing to do with Zhu Wuxian, then why was Zhu Wuxian so familiar with the structure of this room? Apparently, it wasn't his first time here. Zhu Wuxian seemed to have seen through Yiqing Luo's doubts. In the dark, his eyes were as deep as the sea as he stared at her without blinking. It was quiet and serene, floating and sinking. This is Gu Jingyu's room. In the dark, the man's voice sounded especially hoarse and ethereal. Yiqing Luo went into a slight daze. Gu Jingyu, the mastermind behind the secluded palace. Disciple. The palace lord on the surface. This was his room. The so-called forbidden grounds in the secluded palace, indeed referred to. The place where the people with status in the secluded palace stayed. Like Gu Jingyu, Ling Long and the like. Then, the mastermind behind the secluded palace. That person can't possibly stay here. Zhu Wuxian opened his mouth calmly as his voice sounded cold. Finishing his words, he sat down on another chair. Gu Jingyu isn't in the base. If the lights are lit, it will easily alert the servants in the courtyard. The room was dark. It wasn't so dark that one couldn't see their fingers in front of them. But it was slightly dim and one could vaguely see the silhouette of a figure. Yiqing Luo walked slowly to Feng Shi's side and stood still as both her hands gently pressed on Feng Shi's shoulder. Seeing Feng Shi drinking the tea in the cup, she rubbed his head and asked Zhu Wuxian, why do you know this place? I came here when I was discussing matters in the past. Zhu Wuxian explained. In other words, he had been here before. He was referring to the time when they worked together with the Palace of Darkness. And now, he was innocent. Yiqing Luo nodded. Then how long are we going to hide here? It's not convenient for you to bring a child with you now. Zhu Wuxin's expression was calm. Wait until there are fewer people guarding the entrance before you leave. Yiqing Luo pursed her lips slightly and didn't reply. The room fell into a dead silence. Yiqing Luo looked at Feng Shi's exhausted look. He bent down and picked him up, wanting to let him sleep for a while. The next moment, Zhu Wuxin's hands were already stretched out. He picked up Feng Shi before her. There's a bed over there. Yiqing Luo remained silent. He followed Zhu Wuxin into the inner room. Feng Shi had been a bit nervous. But after lying on the bed for a while, he fell asleep. Yiqing Luo sat by the bed as her gaze congealed on Feng Shi's sleeping face. Zhu Wuxin stood at the side. You can also rest for a while and recuperate. No need. Yiqing Luo replied indifferently. There wasn't much fluctuation in her tone. In the darkness, Zhu Wuxian's eyes rippled slightly. His eyes, which were as deep as the sea, gazed deeply at the young lady. You really want to cut off all relations with me? He asked. Yiqing Luo didn't even raise her head. There's no relationship between you and me. Chapter 4891. Zhu Wuxian scoffed lightly. There was a hint of cold mockery in her laughter. Really? His voice was hoarse and his emotions were unclear. If a woman is heartless, she's really heartless. Yiqing Luo's expression remained unchanged. I don't know about other women, but I'm indeed this heartless. So, you don't have to express your goodwill to me intentionally. She had no way to stop others from liking her and being obsessed with her. The only thing she could do was to reject. No matter if Zhu Wuxian was obsessed with her in the past, or the current adoration. That wasn't important. Because, no matter what kind of feelings, it had nothing to do with her. But this kind of you makes me like you even more. Zhu Wuxian seemed as though he couldn't hear Yiqing Luo's rejection as he gave a low laugh. That murmur of a voice. It was filled with a strange charm. Yiqing Luo's slender brows creased as a strange feeling arose in her heart. But not waiting for Yiqing Luo to speak again. Zhu Wuxian had already turned around. Take a rest first, I'll go out and take a look. After Zhu Wuxian left, there was only her and the sound asleep Feng Shi left in the room. An unfamiliar place. An unfamiliar environment. Even though Zhu Wuxian said that as long as there were no lights here, it would be very safe. Yiqing Luo couldn't help but pay attention to the surrounding environment. She didn't dare to let her guard down. In her mind, she had been rehearsing the plan to leave the underground palace. Not knowing how long had passed. Dang, a soft sound was heard from afar. She could faintly see the lights shining brightly. The bright lights were getting nearer. Yiqing Luo's heart jolted violently. Someone came. She stood up alertly as she listened sharply to the movements outside. Orderly footsteps slowly got nearer. Yiqing Luo leaned close to the window. She could faintly see about 20 to 30 secluded palace's disciples directly passing by the house she was in as they headed forward. Those secluded palace's disciples' discussions were clearly transmitted into her ears. The underground palace is only so big, we've already searched the entire place and still can't find anyone. Don't tell me they really hid in this forbidden grounds. If they really hid in this forbidden grounds and offended that person in the main house, he would die even worse. That Feng family's disciple, Elder Su, said we must keep her alive. We have to find him before that person in the main house finds out. Just like that, we ran into the forbidden area again. If that person in the main house finds out, I'm afraid we won't be able to escape. What are you afraid of? Don't we have Princess Linglong to back us up? Just as he was speaking, Yiqing Luo heard a familiar voice ringing, search for this princess. Even if we have to dig 3 feet into the ground, we have to find them. That was Princess Linglong. Princess Linglong's tender voice was filled with anger. Her voice was slightly sharp. So what if it's a forbidden area? If royal father blames me, this princess will bear the responsibility. Don't let go of any room. He searched every inch of the place. I will make it hard for them to escape even if they have wings. Those angry orders. This made Yi Qing Luo's brows creased. From the looks of it, Linglong did not see the letter that Feng Shi had left for her. Linglong felt that Feng Shi had lied to her. Their sincere friendship had been fed to the dogs. So now, all he could think of was, he caught her and Feng Shi. Yi Qing Luo could sense it. Feng Shi would probably be sad for a period of time. To coax Linglong back would probably be a little difficult. But, before this, she had to pay attention. Would those secluded palace's disciples really barge into this room to capture them? If they really came in, where would she hide if she took Feng Shi with her? Chapter 4892. The noises outside got louder and louder. More and more people came. It seemed like all the disciples of the gloomy palace and the underground palace had gathered here. About half an hour later, the noises outside slowly became softer. Indistinctly, they heard Linglong's angry bellow, "What's the use of father keeping you bunch of rubbish? You can't even find two people. Search for this princess. Search clearly. Don't miss any spot." Linglong bellowed furiously. The bunch of secluded palace's disciples were trembling in fear. They were afraid that they would make Princess Linglong unhappy and become a target. And at this moment, an extremely low voice was heard from outside the door, "This room. Do you want to search?" The voice was very close. Yi Qing Luo knew. This person was asking about the room. He was referring to the room she was in right now. Her heart thumped fiercely and she held her breath. And just as that secluded palace's disciple asked this question, the other secluded palace's disciples all turned silent. This room is Palace Lord's room. Palace Lord hates people touching his things. If Palace Lord knew that we had stepped into his room, I'm afraid. The secluded palace's disciples didn't finish their words. But everyone understood the meaning behind those words. Palace Lord had always been a loner. He wasn't close to anyone. And he hated anyone who got close to his turf. Previously, there was a female disciple who tried to sneak into Palace Lord's room. In the end, she was thrown out of the room. That female disciple ended up in a miserable state. After that, Palace Lord even got someone to clean up his room from top to bottom. As though it was tainted with something dirty. From now on, everyone knew about Palace Lords. Mesophobia. There's no sound in the room, so it shouldn't be possible for him to be inside. Someone found an excuse, that Feng family's girl is so young, so she shouldn't know how to restrain her presence. If that brat is really hiding here, with so many of us here, how could we not sense his presence? Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. A group of people, ready to leave again. Yi Qing Luo's heart didn't feel at ease because of this. As expected. The next moment, she heard Linglong's voice nearing them, "What are you all standing here for? Have you checked that house?" "Princess Linglong, this is the palace master's room," a disciple of the abysmal palace reminded. "So what if it's Brother Yu's room? Go in and check." Linglong directly dragged him into the room. "If Brother Yu blames me, I will take responsibility." Bang! The door was slammed open. A loud sound of collision rang out. Yi Qing Luo immediately stepped back and bent down to carry Feng Shi. His gaze focused on the window at the side. Little by little, he carefully moved towards the window. Under Linglong's threatening gaze, the disciples of Abyss Palace entered the room uneasily. The flames flickered. Yi Qing Luo could clearly see the reflection of a few figures outside. Step by step, he approached them. They were in the foyer. "She's in the back room." They were only a few steps away. Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as she bent down slightly, preparing to leap out of the window, what are you doing? Suddenly, a melodious voice like a bell rang out. That voice was soft and gentle, yet it did not lose the charm of a mature woman. It was extremely pleasant to the ears. Moreover, it was filled with the dignity of a superior. The moment this voice was heard, the entire courtyard's voices stopped abruptly. Even the people outside the room froze on the spot, motionless. Chapter 4893. Sister Qinggu. When Linglong heard that voice, her tone became much more obedient. The voice of the woman named Qinggu came again. What's with all the noise? The person that father caught ran away. I'm catching them, Linglong replied obediently. She was no longer as arrogant as before. Go ahead and catch them. Don't make a scene here, Qinggu said in a low voice. Go and get everyone back. Don't run into the courtyard. Sister Qinggu, Linglong said coquettishly. Those two people have angered me. I want them to pay the price. I've searched the entire underground palace but I can't find them. They must be hiding here. How would I not know if they are hiding here? Qing Ji's tone was even more stern. If you continue to make a scene, you can forget about staying in this base. Linglong sniffled in fear. She had never been wronged before. She felt aggrieved and indignant. How could he still care about the respect he had for the other party? Linglong harumphed. Do you think I don't know that you brought an outsider to hide in the courtyard behind father's back? Qing Ji's tone was low and threatening. Linglong was unmoved. He's a man, right? Sister Qinggu, you like him, right? But if this matter were to reach royal father's ears, guess, what would happen to royal father? Are you threatening me? Qing Ji's tone was cold and murderous. Linglong was a newborn calf that was not afraid of tigers. She was extremely fearless. I'm merely reminding Big Sis Qing Pigeon that no matter how much Imperial Father dotes on you, he will definitely not allow you to step on his bottom line. Good, very good. If you want to make a scene, go ahead. Qinggu was so angry that she laughed. I'll let you search here. I want to see what you can find out. Qing Ji's words made Linglong cower. She had forcefully brought the disciples of the Palace of Darkness to search the courtyard. He forcefully led the Dark Nether Palace disciples to search the courtyard. This was already a violation of his father's rules. It was a well-known forbidden area. Only she and her brothers and sisters could enter. The other disciples of the Palace of Darkness, including Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to enter. The other disciples of the Nether Palace, even Elder Su and the others, were not allowed to step in. She wanted to capture them and pretend that nothing had happened. They wanted to pretend that nothing had happened after arresting him. He did not expect to be caught red-handed by the pigeon. If Qing Pigeon told father, no matter how much her lord father pampered her in the palm of his hand, he would probably blame her. Linglong pondered for a moment. With a wave of his hand, he turned around and left. I'm not investigating anymore. Anyway, if he really ran into this forbidden area, Sister Qing Pigeon will have to take responsibility. I have nothing to worry about. With that, he led his men and left the courtyard in a grandiose manner. Silence gradually returned to the courtyard. Those messy auras and noisy footsteps had also disappeared. However, Yi Qing Luo held Feng Shi in her arms and stood rooted to the ground, not moving at all. Because, she could sense it. The woman named Qinggu. He did not leave. She was still standing at the open door. Even though there was a wall between them. Yi Qing Luo seemed to be able to feel that. Qing Ji's line of sight was directed towards her. Moments later, Qinggu walked into the room. Yi Qing Luo's heart jumped. What's the matter? What happened? Suddenly, a mellow voice which was like fine wine drifted into Yiqing Luo's ears in this quiet and spacious courtyard. It was just a simple sentence. It made Yiqing Luo's eyes widen. Her petite body suddenly tensed up. A whirlpool seemed to form beneath her eyes. Chapter 48-94. And at this moment, Qinggu walked into the room. When she heard that voice, she immediately stopped in her tracks. Even her voice became high-pitched. It's just that the princess is fooling around. It's nothing serious. She left the room and closed the door. After that, she walked briskly towards the direction of the voice. The tone changed from Qinggu. And that briskly footsteps. Yiqing Luo was sure. She was indeed like what Ling Long had said. Adoring that man. But Yiqing Luo's long eyelashes trembled slightly. She stood stiffly on the spot, in a daze for some time. Until her arms which were hugging Fengxi felt a little heavy. She then regained her senses and placed Fengxi back on the bed. She sat back on the bed. Her long and narrow eyes were cold in the darkness, as though it had blended in with the ink. Did she hear wrongly? That voice earlier was familiar. Even if it was just one word. She could tell who it was. Dmo Xian. That was Dmo Xian's voice. Was it an illusion? Had she missed Dmo Xian too much and heard wrongly? Yiqing Luo kept trying to find excuses. But she was very clear. There was no way she could have heard Dmo Xian's voice wrongly. His voice was so familiar that it penetrated deep into her bones. Her heart was in a mess. Why was Dmo Xian in the base of secluded palace? If he was so close. Why hadn't he gone to the Feng residence to look for her for such a long time? And what was the relationship between him and that lady named Qinggu? The more she thought, the more confused her thoughts became. Various kinds of melodramatic plots played in her mind. Of course, these melodramatic plots weren't because Dmo Xian had betrayed Chaijiu or had fallen in love with someone else. She had 100% trust in Dmo Xian. But she couldn't control her imagination. Other ladies were obsessed with his peerless looks and forced him to marry her. No matter what Dmo Xian's reason was. He was alone, meeting a lady whom she didn't know. This was a huge mistake. Believing was one thing. However, it was another matter to feel unhappy in his heart. Yiqing Luo's slender fingers clenched into a fist. He continued to let his imagination run wild. She reckoned that she would have to demolish the house. No. She must go over personally and ascertain with her own eyes whether that person was Dmo Xian or not. If it really was Dmo Xian. Let's see why he's here. Yiqing Luo glanced at Fengxi and tapped her forehead with her fingertip. A faint wisp of profound light seeped into the center of Fengxi's forehead. Then, she tucked him in and stood up. He flipped his palm. A snow-white dumpling was standing next to Fengxi. Yiqing Luo patted its head lightly. Chi, I'll be right back. There was that farce just now. If nothing went wrong, this place should be safe. He asked Chi to stay here and watch over Fengxi. If there was anything, she would know in time. Chapter 48-95. Yiqing Luo passed through a few rooms. Her gaze locked onto the front. In the middle of the courtyard was the largest and most luxurious house. She could vaguely see the bright luminous pearl light, like a star in the dark night. It was there. Yiqing Luo stared at that huge house. But her footsteps slowly came to a halt. That familiar voice seemed to be reverberating in her mind. Over and over again, it reminded her, that was indeed Dmo Xian's voice. Yiqing Luo lowered her eyes, her gaze landed on the red ring on her slender fingertip. One could vaguely see a vivid and lifelike phoenix stretching its most beautiful figure on the blood jade-like ring. She gently stroked the ring. This profound phoenix ring was a mandarin duck ring like Dmo Xian's profound dragon ring. If Dmo Xian was really here, the profound phoenix ring should have some reaction. But now, the profound phoenix ring had no reaction at all. This was why. Yiqing Luo curled her fingers tightly. Her gaze was on the profound phoenix ring, quietly staring for a while. She took a deep breath and moved toward the room again, without making a sound. Just as she got closer, Yiqing Luo heard a sound coming from inside the room. It was a woman's light footsteps and a gentle and elegant laughter. This laughter was inexplicably piercing. A man and a woman alone in this place. And they were laughing so happily. What was so funny? Yiqing Luo suppressed the surging unhappiness in her chest and calmed herself down. What she heard was false. She couldn't simply imagine. Yiqing Luo held her breath and followed the direction of the laughter to confirm the woman's location. Following that direction, she quietly moved closer. Her movements were very light. While moving, there was no sound at all. She neared the innermost room's window. Yiqing Luo looked through the half-opened window. She saw the bright luminous pearl light spilling out from the window. Yiqing Luo turned sideways and quietly looked through the window at the situation inside the room. Inside the room, the furnishings were elegant and there was a faint fragrance. One look and you knew it was an exquisite woman's study room. The surroundings were filled with bookshelves and all kinds of books. There was a long table that was bent over, and it was filled with books and scrolls. Yiqing Luo's corner. They could only see a fairy-like woman in a long white dress sitting on one side of the long table. Whereas opposite the lady, Yiqing Luo could only see half a side face of the figure. The figure was tall and slender, beautiful and straight like jade. It was just a glance. Yiqing Luo was certain. That guy was her Xian. Damn it. Her Xian was meeting girls behind her back. Should she rush in and catch the woman? Or should she squat outside and watch what kind of shady business they were doing behind her back? In Yiqing Luo's heart, it was as if 10,000 horses were galloping and roaring. That little princess is very willful. I'm sorry for disturbing you. The woman spoke in a gentle and graceful manner. Her eyes flickered, and her expression was full of tenderness and affection. Yiqing Luo's fingers tightened. He had the urge to strangle that woman. The man didn't even raise his head, as if he didn't see the woman's flirtatious gaze. He lowered his head and searched through the books and scrolls on the table. His slender, jade-like fingers stirred the chaos on the table. It's fine. Two cold and indifferent words. But it made Qing Ji's eyes gush with joy, but she pretended to be reserved and tried to find a topic. I heard that the Lord kidnapped the young master of the Feng family and was rescued by someone. That little princess must be furious. Chapter 4896. The man who had been looking down at the books suddenly raised his eyes. Her black hair was as fine as flowing water and spread out like fine silk. Under the bright light of the night pearl, it rippled with a black luster. What did you say? The man's voice was deep, without much emotion. But Qing Ji's eyes were filled with joy. This was the first time he took the initiative to respond to her. Did this mean, was he interested in what he had to say? Qing suppressed the excitement in her heart and continued the topic. That little princess is very angry. She is now looking for someone in the underground palace. The previous sentence. The man said faintly. Qing thought for a moment, the young master of the Feng family. Why did he kidnap the Feng family? The man asked in a deep voice. Qing shook her head, maybe because the Feng family is related to that. She looked down at the messy books and paintings on the table. Maybe, his lord has found another way. She didn't know if it was an illusion. When she finished this sentence, the man's eyes seemed to sink a little. But when she looked carefully, the man's expression was still calm, without the slightest fluctuation of emotion. It was rare for a man to be interested in her topic. Although Chingu felt strange, she didn't want to end the topic like this, so she continued, the Feng family is really capable. They actually found this place to save people, but it's easy to come in, but difficult to get out. Not only can that person not save people, I'm afraid he will also die here. Look at how angry the little princess is. I'm afraid, when the two people are found, they will be dead. The man didn't say anything at this moment. Instead, he looked down lightly. His eyes were a little cold. His breath was inexplicably cold. Chingu sensed that something was wrong. Her smiling eyes dimmed slightly. She seemed to be testing, but also seemed to be inadvertently asking, "You seem to care a lot about the Feng family." The man didn't even lift his eyelids. He didn't mean to answer. "If you are really interested in the Feng family, I can also help you bring the young master of the Feng family and the person who came to save people here." Chingu guessed the man's thoughts and suggested. As she spoke, she sized up the man's expression. The man lowered his head. His fine black hair covered half of his face. His expression was half hidden. He couldn't see it clearly. Chingu was a little unfathomable. She looked at the handsome half of the man's face and said tentatively, "Little princess, you couldn't find them even after searching the entire underground palace. Perhaps, if they really are hiding here. As long as they enter this courtyard, I will be able to find them." For some unknown reason, Chingu always felt that the man in front of her was like a god, noble and elegant. He had an inexplicable concern for the people of the Feng family. However, after probing, the man's expression did not change. Even when she took the initiative to mention that she was going to look for the young master of the Feng family, he calmly spat out 2 words, "No need." It was a gentle and slow, simple, but not rude, rejection. It seemed that the matters of the Feng family had nothing to do with him. Chingu lowered her beautiful eyes and suppressed the strange feeling in her heart. Maybe, she thought too much. Chingu was relieved. Her cherry lips evoked an elegant smile. She held a book in her hand, got up and walked towards the man. "Look at this, doesn't it look like what you are looking for?" Chapter 48-97. She walked to the man's side. She placed the book in her hand in front of the man. Her long white dress fluttered and brushed against the man's purple robe. She leaned over slightly and lifted her wrist slightly, brushing past the man's ear and landed on the book. This distance would be very close. And this position would also pull the relationship between the two closer. Chingu was confident. Take out this angle, the most beautiful side. Let this man's sight stop on her for a few more breaths. Outside the window, Yiqing Luo clenched her fists tightly and stared at Chingu fiercely, getting closer and closer to the man's body. Especially when she saw Qing Ji's long veil brushing against the man's robe. She couldn't wait to rush in. The two separated. That Chingu wanted to seduce her man. Wasn't it good to live well? What was she thinking about? And Xian, that pig trotter. Why didn't he avoid it? Why did he let Chingu get close to him? Did he still have any self-awareness as a married man? No way. She wanted to rush in. She wanted to tear that Chingu who wanted to get close to her man into pieces. Ow, ow, ow. So angry, so angry. So angry that she wanted to roar like an evil dragon. Calm down, calm down. Old man Song's voice interrupted Yiqing Luo's inner drama. He coughed lightly and comforted her. You must believe in the overlord, he is the man you like. Of course I believe him. Yiqing Luo said this sentence without any hesitation. She had never said that she didn't believe in Dmo Xian. But believing in Dmo Xian didn't mean that she couldn't feel good. How could those wild chickens which came out of nowhere? How could they run around Dmo Xian? Since you believe in him, then you should believe that he will not have any ill intentions towards you. Old man Song could clearly feel Yiqing Luo's suppressed manic emotions. Yiqing Luo replied naturally, of course. She raised her chin and sneered in her heart, that Qinggu, is she better looking than me? Smarter than me? Just a piece of trash. Old man Song listened to the young lady's sophistry. How could a piece of trash make her so angry? Was she really as calm as she looked on the surface? He didn't dare to say it, nor did he dare to ask. Yiqing Luo stared fixedly at the two people who were getting nearer and nearer. He almost rolled up his sleeves and climbed in through the window, at this moment. The man sat in front of the table with his head slightly lowered. It was as though he had sensed something. He turned his head and looked out of the window. His obsidian eyes were as deep as the sea. It was like a whirlpool that could cause one to fall into it with a single glance. Yiqing Luo leaned against the wall, taking big mouthfuls of air silently as she asked in her mind, did he see it? Did he see it? I dodged so quickly that he probably didn't see me, right? Just now, at the critical moment. She jerked her head back. Chapter 48-98. Qinggu was preparing to approach the man quietly to carry out her plan. What entered her eyes was a smear of gentleness. Her heart felt as though it had been shot by an arrow, as a little deer was pounding around. Overlord. A flirtatious voice called out to the man softly. Qing Ji's body leaned forward slightly, as she wanted to get closer. A swoosh sound was heard. Qing Ji's outstretched hand was blocked by a book. Tightly, the end of the book was slightly exerted. Qinggu was pushed 2 steps away from the man. That book was casually thrown aside from the man's hand. That kind of nonchalance. As though he was throwing away unnecessary rubbish. Overlord. Qing Ji's heart skipped a beat, as her voice turned hoarse. Her delicate and gentle face revealed a tinge of coquettish grumbling. She hadn't finished her words. Her throat was choked by the man's icy cold gaze. Don't come near me. The man's voice was emotionless, so bland that it was almost cold. That kind of coldness and heartlessness, a direct and decisive rejection. Qing Ji's heart suddenly felt a little pain. But she still lowered her brows, lowering her attitude to the lowest. Yes, I've overstepped. When Yiqinggu cautiously stuck her head out again, looking into the window. Qinggu had already returned to her original seat. As for Dmo Xian, he was at his original position, not moving at all. He seemed to be very focused, lowering his head to look at the book in his fingers. From the looks of it, Dmo Xian should not have sensed her presence earlier, right? She had already dodged in time. If Dmo Xian saw it, based on his vigilance, he would definitely check it out. But Dmo Xian had no reaction at all. He should not have sensed it. Thinking of this, Yiqing Luo heaved a sigh of relief. While she was relaxing, Yiqing Luo couldn't help but think. What was Dmo Xian trying to investigate in this base of secluded palace? This woman called Qinggu. What the hell was this? From Linglong's words earlier, she could tell. The people in secluded palace actually knew that there was an outsider man in Qing Ji's room. Presumably that sinister and cunning person behind the scenes in secluded palace knew about this. But why? Would he allow Dmo Xian to stay in secluded palace's base? The people behind the palace of gloomy darkness were not afraid. Had Dmo Xian really found something? He was deep in thought. Yiqing Luo suddenly raised her vigilant eyes and looked behind her. She heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Under the misty night sky, the light from the luminous pearl shining through the window flickered. A figure walked out of the darkness. Her red dress was completely different from her cold and indifferent temperament. But it had a different kind of tension and charm. Zhu Wuxin. How did he find his way here? Yiqing Luo frowned slightly as she shot him a warning stare. Zhu Wuxin's sleeve moved slightly, revealing a small figure. Xiao Tuanzi opened her eyes and looked around, her eyes filled with worry and anxiety. Yiqing Luo's brows creased even more tightly. Why did Zhu Wuxin bring Feng Shi here? She cautiously glanced through the window and saw that the man was still maintaining his original posture. The person in the house was Dmo Xian. That man was too sharp. There is some movement here. It was highly possible that Dmo Xian would sense it. She took quick steps forward and took Feng Shi from Zhu Wuxin's arms. Feng Shi immediately wrapped her arms tightly around her neck, as though she had been given a huge shock. Yiqing Luo took a look at the direction of the room and patted Feng Shi's back lightly. Her gaze congealed slightly, as though it was covered with a layer of darkness. Chapter 4899. The young lady was quiet and her gaze was heavy. She looked at Zhu Wuxian for a long time before she slowly retracted her gaze. Then she hugged Feng Shi tightly and turned to leave. Zhu Wuxian's icy cold lips curled upwards, revealing an unfathomable smile. There was Zhu Wuxin and Feng Shi. If there was any movement between the two of them, it would be a piece of cake for the people in the room to find out. Although she was very unwilling to let the two of them be alone in the room. But now, for Feng Shi and her safety, and because of Dmo Xian, she wasn't clear about the reason why Dmo Xian was in the base of the Palace of Darkness. But Dmo Xian must have his own motives. She couldn't disturb Dmo Xian. And she couldn't let the disciples of the Palace of Darkness disturb Dmo Xian. Overlord. Qing Ji's voice was as gentle as the wind. She stared at Dmo Xian's slender jade-like fingers that were holding onto a piece of paper. This page, is there a clue? He stared at the contents of the page. It had been a quarter of an hour. He didn't turn the page. He just stared at it in a daze. This made Qing Gu, who had been paying attention to him, feel strange. Just as Qing Gu shouted, "Lord Dizun," Dmo Xian's fingers tightened. The thin book paper was torn in half with a tearing sound. In the quiet study, the sound was extremely clear. Overlord. Qing Gu was startled. Dmo Xian slammed the book on the table. The force was so great that the books on the table were blown away by the strong wind, which scattered all over the floor. There was no emotion on that peerless face. Between his brows was a bone-chilling coldness. It was as if it carried the force of a thunderbolt. A storm was brewing. Overlord, what's the matter? This was the first time Qing Gu had seen such a powerful Dmo Xian. Her delicate body trembled slightly from the shock. Dmo Xian's dark eyes were fixed on the direction outside the window. The wind was blowing and there was no sound outside the window. That was the owner of the pair of eyes that was watching him. The aura had disappeared. And, at the moment when he disappeared, he could clearly feel it. The other was an aura that made people want to do evil. Yiqing Luo carried Feng Shi as she returned to Gu Jingyu's room. Why are you awake? Yiqing Luo rubbed Feng Shi's head, indicating that he could speak now. Feng Shi's face turned red as she hugged Yiqing Luo tightly. Cece thought. Cece thought that because Cece was too lazy and only knew how to sleep, Fairy Sister didn't want Cece anymore. The little person's voice was crisp and clear, and there was even some fear and panic in it. Yiqing Luo placed her by the bedside. No matter, it's not entirely Cece's fault that Cece wants to sleep. She glanced meaningfully at Zhu Wu Axian, her pink lips curling into a deep arc with unknown meaning. Just now, as soon as he entered this room, Chu Wuxin poured a cup of tea for Feng Shi. There was clearly something wrong with the tea. However, seeing that it was only a few hours of rest, he didn't think too much of it. Therefore, she didn't stop Feng Shi from drinking that cup of tea. It was normal for Feng Shi to feel sleepy and doze off after drinking that cup of tea. Chu Wuxin didn't have the slightest bit of embarrassment after being exposed. He was magnanimous and had no intention to explain. Instead, he asked Yi Qing Luo, "Didn't I ask you not to wander around? Why did you run so far away? Isn't this what you hoped for?" Yi Qing Luo tilted her head, her gaze was slightly cold as she looked at him indifferently. "You let Feng Shi fall into a deep sleep and took the opportunity to draw my attention when I was alone." Qing Ji's situation. Chapter 4900. Her voice paused slightly as she tilted her head and laughed. "Isn't it because you want me to see this scene where Xian and another lady interact alone?" Zhu Wu Axian didn't say a word. The gaze which he shot towards Yi Qing Luo was filled with an unknown deep meaning. As though he wanted to see her into his eyes. Silence. That represented a tacit agreement. Yi Qing Luo's lips curled slightly as she wasn't angry. "Unfortunately, I'll have to disappoint you. The scene which you want to see will not be staged." The young lady's tone was obviously filled with ridicule. When she tilted her head slightly, her long and narrow eyes squinted. "Endless ridicule. Do you know what I want to see?" In the darkness, the man's deep and chilly voice rang. Yi Qing Luo raised her brows. "Do you need to ask me what you want to see next?" "I'm curious." Zhu Wu Axian suddenly walked nearer to her as his footsteps were slightly heavy. "In your heart, how do you see me?" When he got nearer, and it was accompanied by a sky full of cold air, it made Feng Shi hide behind Yi Qing Luo out of fear. Yi Qing Luo hugged Feng Shi with one hand as she comforted his frightened heart while looking at him without any change in expression. "You don't want to know." "But I do." Zhu Wu Axian got nearer as his chilly intent pounced on her. Yi Qing Luo's eyes were gloomy as her long and narrow eyes were filled with a complicated glint. She pinched Feng Shi's hand lightly as she caressed it casually. She spoke calmly as her lips curled into a cold smile. "Do you want to hear the truth or a lie?" "A lie." Zhu Wu Axian replied without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo, wishful thinking. A man who didn't play his cards according to the norm was really quick-witted. She shouldn't have asked a truth or a lie. Her face was solemn as she put on a serious look. "I'm a kind young lady, I only speak the truth." Following that, she shot him a cold glance as her voice was indifferent. "Actually, in my heart, I feel that you are rather annoying." Zhu Wu Axian's expression remained unchanged, and Yi Qing Luo didn't beat around the bush as she went straight to the point. "What you're thinking, isn't it to see a gap between Xian and me, making me misunderstand that Xian has betrayed me?" All sorts of schemes. In the end, it was just for her to see it with her own eyes. The man she loved, even when he knew that she was also in the god realm. However, he was still hiding in this place with another woman. A man and a woman, alone together. As for the other woman, it was obvious that she liked him. If it was any other woman who saw this scene, they would definitely be shocked. He was afraid that he would lose his mind and lose his rationality, thus, it affected the relationship between them. "Aren't you angry?" Zhu Wu Axian neither admitted nor denied it. Instead, he asked another question. Yi Qing Luo replied calmly, "I'm angry." She raised her eyebrows. "Of course I'm angry, but I'm not angry because he betrayed me, because I know that in this world, no one will love me more than Xian." Zhu Wuxin's brows furrowed tightly. His thin lips moved as if he wanted to refute. But in the end, he stopped himself from saying anything. Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled up as her smile was tainted with some gentleness. I believe that Xian will not betray me. He, Zhu Wuxin sneered in a low voice. The coldness in his eyes intensified. He stood in front of the young lady as he looked down at her from a high position. In the darkness, the outline of his grave and stern face was faintly discernible. That pair of serene eyes suddenly revealed an icy glint. I indeed know that he's here. Zhu Wuxin's voice sounded abnormally deep. Chapter 49:01. I indeed want you to see with your own eyes how the person you love is surrounded by other women when you're not around. As for him, he would rather be with another woman than come and see you. Even when you were forcefully betrothed to that Feng Changqing by the acting god emperor, he didn't appear. Zhu Wuxian's words entered her ears clearly. Like a huge bell, it struck Yiqing Luo's ears. His thin lips curled into a sneer. If he really cared about you and valued you, he wouldn't have let you face that kind of situation alone. He should stand out and admit that he is the one you want to marry. Zhu Wuxian snorted, but he didn't. The one who stood out is me, the one who is willing to take responsibility for you is also me. He doesn't have the intention to spend the rest of his life with you, and he had never thought of appearing in front of your loved ones. Yiqing Luo, wake up, he doesn't love you at all. The more Zhu Wuxian spoke, the heavier his tone became. It almost pressured the air in the entire room, making one unable to breathe. Feng Shi's little hand clutched Yiqing Luo tightly, as her little body trembled slightly. Yiqing Luo frowned as she kept her in her arms, standing up slightly, blocking the man's icy cold aura. Young Master Zhu, are you mistaken about something? The young lady's voice was filled with extreme coldness. What right do you have to judge my relationship with Xian? Whether he doesn't care about me or not, whether he values me or not, I have my own judgment. As for you, so what if you stood out at that time? To me, your standing out made me feel very troublesome. Whether Xian wants to spend the rest of his life with me, that's a matter between Xian and I. Since I trust him, I will trust everything about him. And whether he loves me or not, it has nothing to do with you. The young lady's words were extremely indifferent. As though it was wrapped in ice. There wasn't any fluctuation of emotions. Like thousands of silver needles, piercing into Zhu Wuxian's heart. In his mind, every single word of the young lady's harsh words reverberated. I only like you, that's all. Why? Zhu Wuxian's gaze was heavy as he looked at the young girl's face. Bit by bit, he shifted his gaze to the way she was holding Feng Shi in her arms, looking absolutely protective. The sorrow in his eyes deepened. Even the words that came out of his mouth sounded very hoarse. Why are you so cruel to me? Yiqing Luo didn't avoid his line of sight. She looked into his deep, cold eyes. He enunciated each word clearly and resolutely. I don't like you, so, whatever you do, it's wrong. His words caused the entire room to fall into a deathly silence. After a long while, Zhu Wuxin laughed softly. His laughter was filled with bitterness and cold ridicule, because you love Dmo Xian. So no matter what he does, it's right. Right? Yes. Yiqing Luo replied decisively. Zhu Wuxian let out another cold laugh. His chest was concussed. Suddenly, he stretched out his hand and locked Yiqing Luo's wrist. Yiqing Luo's brows creased as she struggled to break free. His strength was extremely great. When Feng Shi saw this, she immediately hugged Zhu Wuxian's hand, wanting him to let go of Yiqing Luo, let go of fairy sister. But Zhu Wu Axian directly stretched out his hand and held Feng Shi in his arms as his body leaned forward tightly, forcing Yi Qing Luo to take 2 steps back. Her legs bent and touched the foot of the bed behind her. Chapter 4902. Yi Qing Luo's brows creased slightly. What do you want to do? Zhu Wu Axian locked her wrist with one hand. In the darkness, that faintly discernible grave and stern face was filled with endless coldness. The pair of eyes which blended in with the night, like a whirlpool, as though it was going to suck in everything around it. Yi Qing Luo's pupils contracted slightly. She had a bad premonition in her heart. Zhu Wu Axian's thin lips curled up. A deep and malicious voice rang beside the young lady's ear. You trust him so much, but will he believe you? Yi Qing Luo realized what Zhu Wu Axian wanted to do. Her expression suddenly sunk. Zhu Wu Axian. Yi Qing Luo bit his name heavily as her eyes seemed to be plated with a layer of frost. The young lady was furious. Her wrist, which was locked tightly by Zhu Wu Axian, suddenly turned in a strange position. She withdrew her hand from Zhu Wu Axian's grip. Immediately after, Yi Qing Luo stretched out her arm towards Zhu Wu Axian, trying to snatch Feng Shi away from his arms. But the moment she stretched out her hand, it was as though the man had seen through her actions. Yi Qing Luo had just stretched out her hand, but it was intercepted by Zhu Wu Axian halfway. Her fair hand was once again held by the man's broad palm. But this scene seemed as though Yi Qing Luo had taken the initiative to send herself into the man's hand. And right at this moment, a bam sound was heard. The tightly shut room door was suddenly pushed open. The ground suddenly began to shake. Even the things in the room started to sway. From outside the open door, it faintly projected the glow of the luminous pearl. In the room, the 2 people whose murderous intent was soaring were stunned for a moment by this sudden change. In the air, there was a ripple of an icy mountain's aura, as though it could freeze the surroundings into frost. The gloomy atmosphere was oppressive. The air was filled with a faint, chilly sandalwood fragrance. Yi Qing Luo's pupils suddenly contracted. Ah, Xian. Hearing the young lady's soft cry, the whirlpools at the bottom of Zhu Wuxin's eyes surged more and more like surging waves. He was like a beast that had been trapped for a long time and was about to be freed. At this moment, the cold smile on his thin lips was filled with evil and malice. He grabbed the girl's wrist and bent down to, come closer, girl. Zhu Wuxin. The refreshing fragrance of plums assaulted his nostrils. Yi Qing Luo recovered from the earlier shock. She pushed Zhu Wuxin's hand away with her other hand, her fingertips moving slightly. A fiery red fan appeared between her slender, white fingers. A sharp blade came out from the handle of the fan and pierced into the man's chest. The fresh blood was not conspicuous among the red clothes. Zhu Wuxin snorted. He lowered his eyes and looked at his chest. The sharp blade stung his eyes. He chuckled softly, and the emotions in his eyes surged even more intensely. It was tight and firm, completely ignoring the sharp blade in his chest. He wrapped an arm around the girl's shoulder. He moved closer to the girl. The sharp blade pierced deeper into his chest. But he didn't care. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyelashes trembled slightly. Very quickly, her eyes were left with a piece of ice which was like 1,000-year-old snow mountain, cold to the bone. The moment the man's arm wrapped around her, with a backhand, she locked onto his arm. It was tight and her body was pushed out of his arm's range. She had just moved. A hand was placed on her waist. The force was extremely strong. The overbearing aura invaded her senses. Bam! A heavy object landed on the ground, reverberating through the house. Chapter 49:03. That red robe fell heavily onto the ground. For a long time, she didn't get up. But no one was paying attention to that side. When the strength around his waist and the scent of sandalwood lingered around his body, he felt a chill run down his spine. In Yiqing Luo's eyes, all that was left was the face that was so close to her, like a god, noble and elegant. "Ah, Xian!" Yiqing Luo called out softly. The man's eyes were as deep as ink, reflecting the young girl's charming and beautiful face. The moment their eyes met, it was as though there were only the two of them left in the world. "Until, Overlord, you." A lady's gentle voice was heard from the side, breaking the tenderness in the room. Yiqing Luo looked sideways towards the open door. She saw a lady dressed in white walking over. The chilly wind blew over. The lady's skirt was rolled up, like a blooming white lotus, pure and noble. It was that woman called Qing Gu. The scene was a little unbelievable. Nestled in Dmo Xian's arms, Yiqing Luo was still in the mood to imagine a drama in her mind. Was this considered husband and cheating partner, caught on the spot? Her and Chu Wu Axian this cheating partner. It seemed their relationship was a little complicated. Above her head, Dmo Xian's hoarse voice floated down. "What are you thinking about?" He didn't even look at Qing Gu from the corner of his eyes. His gaze was focused on Yiqing Luo. And he could clearly see the various weird expressions on the young lady's face. Just a glance. He knew that his young lady was daydreaming again. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she was caught red-handed as her cheeks flushed red and coughed violently. Nothing. Nothing. Dmo Xian scoffed lightly as his slender fingers pinched her face. "Don't let your imagination run wild." "Then have you ever let your imagination run wild?" Yiqing Luo's narrow eyes curved as her eyes were filled with craftiness and ridicule. There was no ill feeling between the two of them. It made the man in red who was lying on the ground stand up shakily. Blood was gushing out from his chest. The corners of her lips were also bright red. But he was still smiling. The curve of his thin lips was clear and cold. That smile was startling to see. The scene in front of him was so warm that it could not contain anyone. It was as if it was mocking him, everything he had done. It was all just a joke. He couldn't interfere at all. Obviously, he already knew about this matter. But his heart would still hurt. Zhu Wuxin lowered his gaze and stared at the spot on his chest where blood was seeping out. The feeling of the blade stabbing into his chest still lingered in his body. But the pain here. It was not even half a beat away from the heart. Perhaps it was because his gaze was too deep. Chapter 49:04. Her expression was somewhat complicated. Her long and narrow cat eyes slightly turned sideways, as it congealed towards Zhu Wuxian's direction. Looking at Zhu Wuxian, who lowered his head and stared at her chest, his thin lips curled upwards, as though he was smiling yet not smiling. Yiqing Luo pursed her lower lip slightly. Before she could open her mouth, the strength around her waist suddenly tightened. The man's deep and hoarse voice floated down from above. "So Pavilion Lord has the hobby of snatching someone else's wife." That voice sounded very calm. But Yiqing Luo could still hear the deep chilliness in it. Like a sharp blade, it pierced towards Zhu Wuxian's body. Zhu Wuxian raised his eyes slightly, as his icy cold eyes met Dmo Xian's gaze. That smile, which didn't look like a smile, was still hanging by the side of his lips. As though he was provoking Dmo Xian, he spoke indifferently. "Snatch someone else's wife. She doesn't seem to be your wife." He laughed coldly. You're not engaged, so why can't I be pleased with her? Dmo Xian's gaze was like a gathering cold wind, as it swirled up a whirlwind. Just as Yiqing Luo felt the chill, as she raised her eyes to look at Dmo Xian. The man's emotions had already returned to normal. He didn't look angry, and even curled his lips. His rosy red thin lips, the curve was noble, with some undetectable complacency. I'm afraid Pavilion Lord has forgotten, little Luo, can only accept that the person standing beside her is me. The man's tone sounded very casual. But it made Zhu Wuxian smile, which was filled with provocation and sarcasm, freeze on his face. Dmo Xian was very satisfied that his own words had caused a huge reaction to Zhu Wuxian. The smile on his lips deepened. The casual expression on his brows also seeped out a few hints of provocation. Of course I don't mind, there are people who are pleased with little Luo, because this means that this lord's foresight is indeed very good. This lord's little Luo, is very popular. Every word, every sentence, was showing his sovereignty. Zhu Wuxian's expression was getting uglier and uglier. But at this moment, Dmo Xian gave a cold and sarcastic smile, but Pavilion Lord's heart makes my little Luo, very troubled. Pavilion Head's heart is troubling my little Luo, Pavilion Head's heart is troubling my little Luo, This sentence kept lingering in his mind. It was as if the replay button had been pressed. Zhu Wuxian's dark eyes were like raging waves. His hands that were hanging by his side slowly clenched into fists. His fingertips turned white. Her cold face exuded an eerie coldness. His fondness, just to make Yiqing Luo so annoyed. Especially when these words were said by Dmo Xian. Zhu Wuxian snorted lightly. Her cold face was filled with pain. He looked straight at Yiqing Luo as he asked word by word, do you also feel the same way? The man's body was obviously a little unstable. Blood could be faintly seen seeping out of his fingertips that were covering his chest. Her red clothes were a little messy. From the looks of it, he was in an exceptionally sorry state. His gaze was abnormally scorching. As though it was going to burn her. Yiqing Luo met his gaze as her brows creased slightly. Towards this question of his. To tell the truth. If she wanted to answer, it would be a little complicated. She deliberated over her words in her mind. Perhaps it was because she took too long to think. That arm which was placed across her waist suddenly increased its strength. It was slightly tight around her waist. Chapter 49:05. As though he was warning her, answer properly. Death question. Death stare. Yiqing Luo. So how should she answer in order to satisfy this master? Was Dmo Xian called? Smiling on the outside, but cursing in his heart. On the surface, he looked extremely confident and complacent, totally unconcerned about Zhu Wuxian's thoughts towards her. In reality, in her heart, she hated Zhu Wuxian's thoughts towards her deeply. Yiqing Luo secretly raised her hand and pinched his arm. You don't believe me? This kind of warning action must be condemned. Dmo Xian's inky eyes congealed deeply on the young lady's face. Of course I believe you, I know. The person Lil Luo loves the most is me. You know, and you still strangled me. Yiqing Luo pinched his arm again. Strangling me means that you don't believe me. Dmo Xian's brows were filled with a smile. So you admit that the person you love the most is indeed me? No. Yiqing Luo replied decisively, the person I love the most is myself. The person I love the most is you, that's enough. Dmo Xian lowered his head slightly, as his chin rested on the young lady's shoulder. Yiqing Luo's little hand pinched the back of his hand from time to time. The man's joints were clearly defined, his fair jade-like fingers felt extremely good to touch. She let out a light snort. The man suddenly held her little hand, as his deep magnetic voice was mellow like fine wine. I'm because I care about you, so I'm not confident in myself. My fault. Don't be angry, The last at the end of the tone was raised, low and lazy. Like a little hook, it tugged at Yiqing Luo's heartstrings bit by bit. Bam! In front, a sound of a heavy object colliding was heard. It dispersed the warmth in the room. Yiqing Luo's vision had just turned over. She saw the figure who had knocked against the door, but was still swaying, as he turned around to leave. That figure gave off a lonely and bitter feeling as if he was fleeing for his life. Yiqing Luo's pink lips moved, as she wanted to call out to Zhu Wuaxin. But the words that were about to come out, she swallowed it back. What was the use of calling him? For people like Zhu Wuaxin, to a person who was so paranoid that he was speechless. Since he couldn't give any response. Or use indifference to reject. She could see that too. Those actions and words that Dmo Xian had said earlier, were all completely different. It was all to make Zhu Wuaxin give up. However, looking at Zhu Wuxin's swaying figure, which looked like it would fall at any moment even when he walked, and the blood dripping on the ground, Yiqing Luo's pink lips pursed even tighter. More or less, he couldn't bear to do it. Before he could speak. Beside his ears, the man's faint voice floated down, Xiao Zhou, follow him, don't let him die. A ball of white light suddenly shot toward Zhu Wuxin. The strong wind caused the tottering figure to lose its balance and fall to the ground. The huge nine-tailed fox swept its tail and hooked the man who was about to come into intimate contact with the ground. Then, in the blink of an eye, he disappeared from the underground palace of the Dark Palace. Ah Xian! Yiqing Luo stretched out her hand and hooked his neck, rubbing her head against his face. Thank you. Because of Zhu Wuaxin, you're thanking me. The man's obsidian eyes sunk slightly, as his tone sunk. Yiqing Luo shook her head, as her pink lips held a bright smile. I want to thank you. For loving me so much. She tiptoed and hooked the man's neck. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.